Feels like we got a little turbulence.
Once you hit the ground, head straight to the designated convergence point. Got it?
Sorry I'm late.
It's time. Let's move out.
What about Cooper?
Forget him. Time's up.
Wait! Wait!
Go push, man, push! Fuck, go!
Hello there everyone. As you can see, I go to great lengths to try and greet differently in each video because I'm trying to become a totally unique, independent and free-thinking YouTuber who doesn't follow the social norms and cliche or carbon copy ways of other YouTubers who tend to use the same greeting in each video. I know. I'm indeed very special. A wolf among sheep if you will, because you can't be a clone if you greet differently in each video.
I'm built different. You're wrong. I'm built different.
Is it in my mouth?
And that's on what? Period.
Today's classic video game showcase is the 1999 PS1 exclusive Dino Crisis, which is probably one of the most terrifying games I remember playing as a kid. But even to this day, in my mid-30s, that part where you enter the empty office on the second floor of the abandoned facility and the giant head of a T-Rex comes smashing through the window still makes me shit myself in fear. Dino Crisis was a survival horror game which contained crappy movement controls that more often than not resulted in you not getting away in time because you'd fumble too much and getting eaten by a group of Velociraptors.
Jesus Christ!
Which was developed and published by Capcom, the same team that was responsible for the highly successful Resident Evil series was also behind the development of Resident Evil Dinosaur Edition, Dino Crisis, with the famed Japanese game director Shinji Mikami at the helm. The story involves a woman by the name of Regina, who together with her Special Operations military team must investigate an abandoned island facility where something has gone terribly wrong. While progressing through the game, she and her team find out that the world-renowned scientist named Dr. Edward Kirk, who was reported dead 3 years ago but is in reality still very alive and is leading a secret weapons project within the facility. As the story progresses, it is revealed that Dr. Kirk was experimenting with what he refers to as third energy, which resulted in creating a rift in space that allowed dinosaurs inhabiting the same island in prehistoric times to be teleported to our time and overrun the island in the modern day. And speaking of dinosaurs, I'm sure many of you watching this video are familiar with and maybe even fans of the Jurassic Park films. I know I definitely am, and even more so when I was a kid growing up in the 90s. Anyway, when I was but a wee young lad, my father bought me the video cassette tape of the original Jurassic Park movie from 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg, and I vaguely remember it being one of the first live-action films I had ever watched, having only really been exposed to cartoons and animated films like the Care Bears or The Land Before Time up until that point. I would then go on to watch the rest of the Jurassic Park trilogy while growing up, which includes The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, because when I was a child, I was absolutely obsessed with dinosaurs. It was like crack to my young brain. I even ended up watching the attempt at the franchise reboot with the Jurassic World films, which... I refuse to comment on these movies because they were absolutely terrible. Apparently, it's highly possible to outrun a Velociraptor while wearing high heels.
Fucking running like lady, eh? Flounder.
And if a person is one with the Force, they can also stop two massive carnivores from charging at them full speed with the possible express desire to eat them.
Use the Force, Luke.
Stand down.
Hey, hey! What did I just...
The Force is with you, young Skywalker.
And do not even get me started on this scene at the end of the third movie.
This isn't about us.
Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Hollywood, my only question is, why?
Why? Why? Why? Why? Why?
While some of you may disagree with me on the quality of entertainment regarding the Jurassic World films, I would just like to say that it's okay. You are all entitled to your wrong opinions, freedom of expression, and all that jazz.
I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong. And there's nothing you can do about it.
But we are not here to debate the absolute crappiness of the Jurassic World films. Rather, I instead would like to take a small look into its accuracy regarding the depiction of the dinosaurs portrayed on screen. In particular, the second main character next to T-Rex in the entire film series, the Velociraptor. It turns out, after much research in the field of paleontology, which is the digging up and study of dinosaur bones, scientists have all come to the discovery that the real Velociraptor was in fact no bigger than a small dog or a turkey. The depictions we see of them in Jurassic Park or the Jurassic World films are completely false and are in actual fact a lot closer to the two other real-life raptor dinosaurs, namely Deinonychus and Utahraptor. However, despite knowing this, Steven Spielberg went with the decision to call them Velociraptors in the films, much to the dismay of scientists all over the world, because he felt that the name Velociraptor sounded cooler than the names of Deinonychus or Utahraptor. Creative freedom and so on. Those scientists can suck a dick. Velociraptor belonged to the subclass of dinosaurs called theropods, and was a two-legged, sickle-clawed dinosaur that flourished in Central and Eastern Asia during the late Cretaceous period, which was roughly between 99 million to 65 million years ago. It was closely related to the aforementioned North American Deinonychus of the early Cretaceous and the other North American Utahraptor, which turns out was the largest of the three. The three of them shared in a common lineage, which were called dromaeosaurs, and it turns out that there were a bunch of these during the time of the dinosaurs, such as Bambiraptor, Dakotaraptor, Austroraptor, and a whole bunch of sickle-clawed members of the raptor gang, who probably ruled the grimy streets of downtown Prehistoria, moving in packs and murking any and all unfortunate dinosaurs that would cross their path. Although it seems like that part may still be hotly debated.
Cruising down the street in my 6'4", jocking the bitches, slapping the hoes, went to the park to get the scoop, knuckleheads out there, cold shooting some hoops.
All species of dromaeosaurs possessed an unusually large claw on each foot, as well as ossified tendon reinforcements in their tails that enabled them to maintain balance while striking and slashing at their prey with their clawed feet upraised. Velociraptor was smaller than most of these, however, reaching a length of only 1.8 meters or 6 feet, and perhaps weighing no more than 45 kgs or 100 pounds. Velociraptor appears to have been a swift, agile predator of small herbivores, which was supposedly also covered in feathers rather than just scales, kind of resembling a smaller version of the Australian deathbird called a cassowary, except with a more streamlined body shape, a slimmer and longer face filled with miniature pocket knives or teeth. The discovery of Velociraptor is linked to two of the most intriguing figures in paleontology history, Roy Chapman Andrews and Zofia Keelan-Jaworowska. Often compared to Indiana Jones, Andrews was an American explorer known for his vivid field stories. The man's writings describe narrow escapes from death at the hands of wild dogs, injured whales, and typhoons. Andrews became a bit of a celebrity in the 1920s and 1930s when he led a series of fossil hunting expeditions through the Mongolian Gobi Desert. Helped by a combination of motor vehicles and camel caravans, his team found the remains of many prehistoric beasts unknown to science at the time. One was a small dinosaur with a long snout and grasping claws. In 1924, paleontologist Henry Fairfield Osborn named it Velociraptor mongoliensis. But while Andrews' crew discovered Velociraptor and Osborn named it, we have Zofia Keelan-Jaworowska to thank for the most amazing specimen ever unearthed. As a renowned paleobiologist, she oversaw the once-in-a-lifetime discovery of a velociraptor who may have died in combat with another dinosaur. Other than being a member of the subgroup known as dromaeosaurs, Velociraptor and its other sickle-clawed foot cousins were also part of the much larger subgroup of dinosaurs called theropods, as I mentioned earlier, which means that they somewhat shared a relation to a very small extent with the big boys like Tyrannosaurus rex, Allosaurus, Spinosaurus, Gigantosaurus, and Carnotaurus. But this wasn't a very close relation, since the only real connection between the big boys and the small boys was that they belonged to the aforementioned subgroup called theropods. So think of them as being super long lost distant fifth cousins on their mother's father's uncle's side or something.
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
What's that make us?
Absolutely nothing.
What does make them related by like 5% is the fact that all theropod dinosaurs, including the handful of them that were herbivores or vegans, I mean plant eaters, was the fact that all of them stood and moved about on 2 legs. And to my own surprise, and most likely yours as well, the theropod dinosaurs didn't go completely extinct, since almost all modern birds are considered theropods as well. So who knows, your pet chicken could very well have been a descendant of the fearsome T-Rex at some point in the planet's history. Oh, how far the mighty have fallen. But I'm not going to go too deep into the evolution of theropod dinosaurs into modern birds, because it gets extremely complicated and convoluted, with modern birds falling into a different subgroup of the main subgroup. So therefore, not all theropods became birds, but all birds are theropods. Therefore, all modern birds are in fact dinosaurs, but not all dinosaurs became birds. But there's also the sauropods, who were not bird-like at all, and who all went extinct. But then my mind makes me wonder if maybe they aren't related to modern reptiles. But then you find out that the word reptile is more of a feeling rather than a fact, so anyone can identify as a reptile and use the pronouns cold and blooded. But then it turns out that some reptiles are actually warm-blooded and may live among us as the lizard overlords that secretly control the world through a form of shadow government and are responsible for all the UFO abductions, and that every member of the elite in society, including all celebrities, world leaders, and billionaires, are actually members of the shape-shifting cabal of reptilian humanoids, as is evidenced by the Spider-Man villain known as the Lizard, the Ninja Turtles, the Argonians in the Elder Scrolls games, and the Mortal Kombat character that is literally named Reptile. It's all in the details, people, or the fine print, just behind the veil. Society is an illusion. We live in a simulation controlled by interdimensional aliens and...
Sorry.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Whew. Went a bit off on the rails there, didn't I? Anyway, as I mentioned before, explaining the gradual evolution of theropod dinosaurs into modern birds is a complicated endeavor, because it involves various habitat changes, millions of years in time lapses, and multiple subgroups and species, and is not as simple as one animal turning into another, like most people tend to think. The evolutionary process over the course of life on Earth is extremely complex. But before we move on, theropods weren't the only types of dinosaurs to exist in prehistoric times, with another type being called sauropods. These include the gigantic 4-legged long-necked dinosaurs, as well as ankylosaurs, archosaurs, which are the ancestors of modern-day alligators and crocodiles, ceratopsians like the famous Triceratops, and sauropods, which included many of the duck-billed dinosaurs like Hadrosaurus and Parasaurolophus. Of course, there were many more different types of dinosaurs besides the handful I mentioned here. So to get back on track, let's focus a little bit more on Velociraptors' eating habits and diet. Thanks to modern technology and various techniques, paleontologists are able to determine what sort of food a a certain animal would have eaten, even if that animal existed millions of years ago. Simple things like studying an animal's teeth, searching for fossilized food remains such as additional bones alongside its skeleton, and even down to studying fossilized remains of fecal matter called coprolites are all clues that scientists can use to determine a specific animal's diet. In the case of Velociraptor, it was most certainly a carnivore, meaning that it had a fully meat-based diet, which is evidenced not only by its razor-sharp teeth and its oversized sickle-shaped claw on its big toe, which it most definitely used for hunting, but also by the fact that in the year 1994, paleontologists found a fossilized skeleton of a velociraptor that contained a bone of a pterosaur in its lower abdomen, meaning that before it died, it definitely was able to enjoy at least one last meal before being sent off into the Great Dino Valley in the sky. Size wasn't the only thing that set the dromaeosaur cousins Deinonychus and Velociraptor apart. They lived in opposite hemispheres. The former was a North American predator, but skeletons of the Velociraptor are only found in Chinese and Mongolian fossil deposits. Time also separated the two dromaeosaurs as well. Deinonychus evolved around 115 million years ago, placing it in the early Cretaceous period of Earth's history. Yet Velociraptor was a late Cretaceous dinosaur that lived between 74 and 70 million years ago. Keen senses helped Velociraptor to navigate prehistoric Asia, according to new research. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Anatomy examined Velociraptor's ears and cranium with X-ray technology. The layout of its inner skull indicates that this dinosaur had a good sense of balance. Beyond that, it appears Velociraptor was also sensitive to a wide range of sounds, meaning that it had a good sense of hearing as well. Also, the theropod's vestibulo-ocular reflex, which stabilizes an animal's gaze as the creature moves its head, may have been quite acute, which in layman's terms means that Velociraptor had really good eyesight as well. It is likely, wrote the study's co-authors, that Velociraptor mongoliensis was an active predator that would also rely on scavenging carrion and animal carcasses in the event that a ready source of prey was not available. When the going got rough, Velociraptor wasn't above going full-on survivalist hobo mode. In 2007, a set of tiny bumps was discovered on the forearm of one specimen from Mongolia. Turkey vultures have these bony knobs as well, as they are feather attachment points, thus proving that Velociraptor was indeed a feathered reptile. So that confirms that Velociraptor had some arm plumage, though since it couldn't fly, it is now believed that perhaps the feathers served the dual purpose of attracting potential mates and to keep the small dinosaur warm during the harsh winter weather. It is also theorized that Velociraptor's big claws, or rather talons, were hyper-extensible, meaning that they could wiggle that big clawed toe as expertly as an OnlyFans foot model. Not that I'd know anything about that, of course. Said claws were most likely used for piercing skin and gripping flesh. Dromaeosaurs like Velociraptor probably used these notorious weapons to help pin and subdue their prey, or to defend themselves from enemies by getting into what is essentially a prehistoric gangland knife fight, except with their feet instead of their hands. They were probably the original founders of the Korean martial art called Taekwondo, which would also make a lot of sense given the location where Velociraptor fossils were found, in Mongolia, which is not too far off from Korea. Either that or Koreans are in reality descendants of Velociraptors, since their kicking techniques are so on point. Anyway, to conclude this episode, Let's end this off with a fossil discovery in 1971 in the Gobi Desert in southern Mongolia that may as well have been a scene out of a Jurassic Park movie. Previously, I had mentioned a famous paleontologist by the name of
Listen properly.
Kielan Jaworowska, who was born in Poland in 1925. As World War II unfolded, she became a medic for the Polish resistance movement. She then went on to direct the Institute of Paleobiology at the Polish Academy of Sciences. In 1962, she co-organized the first of several joint Polish-Mongolian expeditions into the Gobi Desert. During one of these campaigns in the year 1971, Jaworowska and her colleagues unearthed two intertwined dinosaur skeletons. One belonged to a Velociraptor and the other one to a ceratopsian herbivore called Protoceratops. The dromaeosaur was found with its left hand grasping the Protoceratops's skull and its broken right arm trapped between the creature's jaws. Also, this Velociraptor had a foot pressed against the herbivore's neck. Most paleontologists think the animals somehow died while fighting each other, double KO vibes, but there are also theories that suggest that during the scuffle, the pair was abruptly buried under a collapsing sand dune and suffocated to death. So there you have it folks, a detailed breakdown of the real Velociraptor and how Steven Spielberg lied to millions of innocent dinosaur-loving children around the world. How he could submit such a heinous crime and still sleep at night is beyond me. Some people truly have no soul. All jokes aside though, the original Jurassic Park film is one of the greatest movies ever made and still holds up to this day, and I wish that they would stop trying to milk the franchise because the newer films suck. Stop trying to remake Jurassic Park and maybe come up with new ways to create live-action dinosaur movies, like maybe try something in the horror genre like Dino Crisis did for gaming, or maybe start doing animated dinosaur films again like The Land Before Time or Disney's Dinosaur. Or hell, you could even bring back the steroid-filled kids action series Extreme Dinosaurs, or make something similar, because who wouldn't want to see a roided up T-Rex in camo pants and army boots with a bandolier across its chest and a bazooka over its shoulder?
Something's really rocking on planet number 3. Modern man's got prehistoric company. A colossal fossil feud, unlike anything before, between the reckless raptors and the extreme dinosaurs. Extreme, extreme, extreme dinosaurs. Tails that snap like thunderclaps, talking, stalking, raptor trap. Extreme, extreme, extreme dinosaurs. The classic and Jurassic Park. Extreme dinosaurs.
Wow! Once again, I am reminded of my age. Why do I always hurt myself so?
Why must you hurt me in this way, Harry?
Anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.